welcome back to Photography for the Rest of Us, a place for people who love the art of photography. My name's Carrie, and this is week 1, day 3 of our Learn Photo Challenge. All right, guys, we have some great momentum going, so let's keep at it. I'm going to go right into it today. So this is week 1, which means we're focusing on aperture, and I want you to think about the aperture choices and depth of field of your images as you're taking shots. The point behind this, because I know some people have asked, is to have intention in your decision making. So just because you always shoot wide open, or just because you always shoot where the camera decides the aperture, or whatever you're doing now, I want you to change it just so that you're photographing with intention for this challenge. I don't want you to change everything all the time. Just photograph and taking images with intention, thinking about the depth of field choices that you're making for this challenge. And hopefully it rubs off a little bit for the future. All right, so like I said, week 1 is aperture, and day 3 is everything in focus. That means I don't want to see any bokeh. Nice, clear, strong images. What I would recommend is shooting basically f8 and up. All right, so really, really big depth of field. I want lots and lots of things in focus. I know that this is going to be a natural inclination to go to landscape photos, and that's fine, but you don't have to. Here's a couple of images that I've taken over the years that are f8 or up, that are portraits. There's people in them, right? So I don't want you to be limited. Now, I'm not saying in any way that a shallow depth of field is bad. What I'm saying is that you need to be able to diversify depending on the situation. So being able to take a really amazing, strong portrait at f9, just like at f1.4 or whatever open aperture you're shooting at, means that you can have a diverse portfolio, and it means that you are more capable in different situations of creating an image with a certain feel or look that you're going for. If you shoot the same way all the time and take the same picture over and over again, you may have a moderately successful business, or you might have a moderately successful portfolio, but being able to diversify and have your aesthetic and your feel and your vibe in different types of photos and images and tell different types of stories will make you a stronger photographer overall. So then you use things like composition in that. If all you ever do is rely on depth of field to create strong images, your images are going to get very static and start to look the same as people flip through your portfolio. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying that it's good to think outside the box. Okay, and with that, since I know a lot of you are going to think landscapes when I say everything in focus, I do have a couple of little tips for shooting with a wider depth of field. So I'm gonna go to my screen here, and this is just I just picked a random photo. This is a shot of some trees with ice on them that I took a few weeks ago. If you look in, zooming in, I just like the way the light was reflecting off of the trees. But the point is this image was shot at f16. There we go, there's my histogram. This image was shot at f16, ISO 100 and a 24mm lens. And this is one of the things that I want you guys to understand when you're shooting wide open, all right? So sometimes when you shoot wide open, you get, I can zoom in, there we go. You get these little dots. And if there wasn't any clouds in the sky, they'd be really, really, really obvious. But you see these little spots on my image. All right, well, 2 things. 1, they're very easy to correct. And 2, they are dust on my sensor. So what's happening here is when you shoot really wide, like a really big depth of field, so a very closed down aperture, the light has to come in to your sensor. Okay, so if this is your aperture, it's very small, and this is your sensor, right? When the light comes in through your hand, through your aperture, and hits your sensor. When it's super wide open, the light goes directly in, right? It's a straight line. It doesn't really have to angle to fill up the whole sensor. When you have a very small aperture, the light has to actually angle in when it hits your sensor, which means if you have any dust or lint or dirt or anything on your sensor, those pieces of dust create shadows on your final image on the sensor because the light has to angle on it and it creates shadows, right? Which is why you could have a super, super dirty sensor and at f2.8 you can't see any dust spots, but at f16 you can, and at f22 you can, and as you get higher. So if you are shooting at a very wide aperture and you notice these spots on your images, you probably need to clean your sensor. Now, most cameras have the option to, in your menu, to clean your sensor. I do not want you lifting up, do not lift up your mirror and try and clean off your sensor. I have had students do that. Oh my gosh, don't do that, okay? In your menu options, there is a clean sensor option on most cameras, and it basically just shakes your sensor. You click clean center and you hold your camera still and it kind of shakes it and it gets things off. And if that doesn't work, you probably need to, and it's real bad, you probably need to take your camera in for servicing to have it professionally cleaned by a certified person so they don't mess up your sensor. I know that you can find YouTube videos on how to do it yourself and all that stuff, and I know people do that, and that's on you if you decide you want to do that. But if you get any scratches or if you make the dust worse, which I have seen, and that then the manufacturer won't cover it if it's not taken care of with a certified person. So I think that the last time I took mine into Nikon, it was in Tokyo, and it cost about the equivalent of $40 to have my camera and my sensor cleaned and checked to make sure everything was good. I shoot a Nikon D850 most of the time. I have a few other cameras as well, but when I took my Nikon in, I think it was like $45 to have it cleaned and everything from a service center. So typically it's not particularly expensive. But going back to the screen, if you want to get rid of those spots, it's super easy in Lightroom. We just hit our little heel brush. I don't even know what my settings are right now. Here we go, and you just click on it. And apparently my computer is not moving super fast today, but we're just going to go through and remove those spots. You can see that my sensor is actually pretty clean right now, which is nice. It's because I haven't shot very much. Usually by this time in the year, I am a mess because I shoot a lot in the fall. But as you can see, it's all gone. Can't see it, all right? And the image is back. Okay, that was the first thing that I want to show you guys today. And then the second thing I want to show you is how to do a pano if you're going to do or a panorama, if you're going to do a landscape shot. I know a couple people were asking about this on the Facebook group, and I figured this was a really good time to just pop this in there. I'm going to use Lightroom, and this is super easy. So when you're out taking the picture that you're trying to do a pano for, a lot of people, right, you get a really wide angle lens and you take a picture and you hope for the best. And this is the example shot that I'm gonna show you. This is a pano, and then I used just a wide angle lens for the same scene. I like both images, but I just kind of want to show you the difference. So this is one of the images of the scene that I'm gonna do the pano of. This was in Mongolia last summer, or I guess the summer before last, but last summer was COVID lockdown. So 2019, this was northern Mongolia, real close to the Russian border. And I love Mongolia, by the way. If you ever get the opportunity to go, it's amazing, fantastic, great. But so this was a shot that I took. It's a 24 millimeter lens. I think it was f14. And that I got a nice sun flare. You know that it's probably 14 to and up. If you get those rays versus just a blur of sun, that's how that's happening, and later in the challenge I will talk about that more. But this was f14 landscape photo. I like the photo. I like the dog in the foreground. It's fine. This is a super fast edit on this. This isn't a final edit, but gives you an example, okay? But this scene was so much bigger than I could fit in my 24 millimeter lens, which happened to be what I had on my camera at the time. So I decided to do a panorama of it. And the technique that I use for a panorama is this. It's super easy. So the first thing you do, I'm just pretending here, right? Obviously. The first thing you do is take a picture of your hand. So I'm seeing this beautiful landscape in front of me. First thing I'm gonna do is turn my camera vertical and take a picture of my hand, okay? At whatever the starting point is. Now, the reason I'm taking a picture of my hand is so that when you go back through your images and you have 300 images from that sunset or wherever you were, right? If you find a picture of your hand, you know it's the beginning of a pano, right? Like, so then when you're editing, you're like, okay, the next sequence is supposed to be all put together. So here I am, setting up, taking a picture, click of my hand. It doesn't have to be in focus, it doesn't matter, right? Click of my hand, and then I'm going to take multiple pictures, click, 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 and when I'm done, another picture of my hand, or you could do a picture of your foot or whatever, right? Hand, click. Okay, that means that all of the pictures between the two pictures of my hands, right, are supposed to be a pano for when I'm editing later. Now, it doesn't matter if it's your hand or your foot or whatever, but I always have my hand with me, right? And with the camera. So click, easy, done, takes 2 seconds. The reason we're turning it vertical is so that you can get more, right? Because we're going this way across. And then the other tip would be to figure out what your focus is. Like, okay, so I'm gonna click, my focus is going to be 1/3 of the way into the image, which is what about is recommended for landscape photography. I'm gonna get that focus, and then I'm gonna switch my camera to manual mode, manual focus mode, because I don't want my camera to try and correct for each photo, because I want it all to be the same as I go across, right? So again, let's go through it. We're gonna take this beautiful pano, we're going to click, take a picture of our hand, focus on 1/3 into our scene. So we're not focusing into infinity, we're focusing, in this case, we're gonna be focusing kind of just before the horizon line. You'll see the picture in a second. Okay, focusing, clicking to manual mode on my focus, which is right here on this lens. Click, 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 hand. Done, right? So when you've done that, we're gonna go back to our screen here. All right, so when that's done, you'll have something that looks like this. This is the first shot of my hand, and then I took, looks like 11 photos. Moving slowly across the screen. I probably overlap it too much. You could probably overlap it by like 25% and be fine. I probably do like 50. And then there's the shot of my hand. So then once you get into Lightroom, all you have to do is select the images, not the ones with your hand in them. Select the images in between your two hand pictures and hit right click and go to Photo Merge and Panorama. All right, so this is what I get. Now you have some options here. It's spherical, cylindrical. It'll take a second. Okay, so it gives a little bit different distortion. It looks a little bit different, right? So let's do spherical. I like that one better. And then you can auto crop, where it auto crops this white section out, or new button, you could do fill edges and it figures it out and fills in the edges for you. And that looks good to me. You can also do auto settings. So here's completely raw and here's it fixing it for myself. For the purpose of this, I'll let it fix it so you guys can see the final product. These are all raw images. I haven't messed with them at all. So I'm gonna merge. And it does take a second, especially when I'm screen recording, for the computer to think, but it shouldn't take too long, it's coming. But at the end, you will end up with something like this. So you see how much more information I can get in this pano than I can in my 24mm lens. And 24 I get is not the widest, right? I have wider wide angle lenses, but I don't always have those with me. And even then you get that like kind of fishbowl effect looking, whereas this is a super huge file with tons of information. I can zoom way in. Those are called gears. They look like yurts, but they're gears in Mongolia. The horse, and so there's tons of information there. I could put that photo on a billboard if I wanted to, and it would be great. So, all right, that is everything from me today. Your challenge again is everything in focus. So I want apertures at f8 and above. I would love for you to go out and shoot new stuff versus pulling stuff off of your phone. Even if that means that you're taking pictures in your backyard, that's totally fine. Get creative with it, because what you guys don't know is that these are all building, and it's going to get more challenging and push your creativity more, because I want you guys to learn how to work your camera, not just pull things off of your cell phone. So anyway, if you'd enjoyed the video and this was helpful to you at all, please hit the like button and the subscribe button and the notification bell, and share with your friends and let everybody know what I'm doing, because I literally do all of these the night before the challenge. Like, I have a day before you guys do all of this. And so it's taking up quite a bit of my time, and I really appreciate your comments and your support and your interaction with all that. And I can't wait to see your images on Instagram with hashtag LearnPhotoChallenge and hashtag photos for the rest of us, as well as on our Learn Facebook group. All of that information is below, and I will see you tomorrow.